Hello and welcome to my series on Pokestop management and submission. It doesn't have to just relate to Pokemon Go, but it's ostensibly geared towards Pokemon trainers. And in this series, we will learn about cartography and sort of preparing an area for Pokestop submission, all whilst I show you around the beautiful Garden of England where I live. And of course, there is indeed a lot more than going to waste spot submission in general than even I initially realised, and I knew there was some sort of steps and knowledge that you needed in order to be efficient about your Pokestop submission, shall we say. So, if you want to maximize the number of gyms and Pokestops in an area, then this is a series for you. So, if we take a look at this park on PokemonGoMap.info, I'll be going into Pokemon Go Map in more detail later on in the series because it is a very important and useful feature amongst other important and useful features. I use it a lot, and you'll notice some of these sort of map points have had sort of scores through them. So the blue is the Pokestops, and so the orange is the gyms. And you can see I can denote like my gym badge level on here, which is good for me because I have a lot of gyms. And the scores denote Pokestops that didn't exist before we had sort of an Antique Wayfarer. And this park, when I first started playing Pokemon Go, it had 2 gyms in the entire park. And then by the time we had waste spot submission for Pokemon trainers, there were 6 gyms. And now we are sort of up to 18, 19 gyms, depending on what you count as the park. And hoping for at least 20, so probably 2 or 3 more. And as you can see, we've done a lot of good work. It wasn't just me, but then I can take most of the credit for this. But of course, there are others involved because with such a huge area, you need to be coordinating with other people. Very important. And we'll be going through how I've gone about and done that. So, yes, it takes planning, coordination, and then a variety of tools which I will go through, including PokemonGoMap.info, and other tools to check out are Wayfarer Plus, and indeed the Ingress Intel map is also a very useful tool. But there will be more on the different tools that you can use later, because if you do want to maximize the number of gyms and Pokestops in an area, it's very important to use like the various third-party features, and definitely I would suggest the Ingress Intel map. But we will go through how to set up the Ingress Intel map in a later video, because that's sort of a video in of itself. And yes, as I mentioned, Pokemon Go map keep track of existing gyms and Pokestops, and you can keep track of your current submissions. And because you can make private maps, you can coordinate with others and put the private markers on there so you know what everyone submitted and where. Because you can pull the coordinates directly from Niantic Wayfarer. And I will show you how to do that because it's not immediately obvious how you can do that. And that is a very useful feature because then I can see if I submitted a Pokestop within 20 meters of another waste spot. Because if it's within 20 meters, it won't appear in any Niantic game. So, moving on, yes, we need to talk about map cells. Map cells, probably the biggest thing that I get asked questions about. And as much as I sort of harp on about map cells, people still don't understand it. So I'm going to try and be succinct and concise in my description of how map cells work, because they relate to all sorts of different features within Pokemon Go. There's different sizes of map cells that mean different things. But of course, the main thing people don't want to be knowing is how do map cells relate to Pokestops and how do they relate to gyms? Of course, they relate to other things, as I say, like EX-rays, location data, the weather, and other bits and pieces that we will go through. And that's probably going to take a big chunk of this series, is explaining all the different types of map cells and how they work. Okay, and then we're going to be looking at the Niantic Wayfarer and its various features. And there'll be a segment on Wayfarer Plus because I find that very useful. It's sort of a browser add-on that you can download. So I guess if you're on mobile, you probably won't be able to get it, but As I say, very useful, and of course I'll be going over why you should review and sort of what makes a good Pokestop, because I see a lot of things get through which shouldn't be Pokestops, and a lot of things get rejected which should be Pokestops. And in fact, that was my impetus for making this series. Was I've had several legitimate submissions rejected because people don't read or they don't understand the guidelines. We're not saying it's the people that are watching this video series, but it'd be great if the people that needed to watch this video series that have been rejecting legitimate submissions do watch this video series. So that's just like a little side rant. But yes, that was the impetus for creating this series. Then we'll be going over the relationship Ingress has with Pokemon Go. And there's a method for determining which Pokestop sort of gets upgraded, quote unquote, into a gym. This is not done at random, as I first thought. There is a sort of a method to the supposed madness, I guess. And we'll be going over what determines which Pokestop becomes a gym, or if there's more than one portal appearing at the same time, which one will then become a gym in Pokemon Go. And of course, as I mentioned before, we will be looking at setting up the Ingress Intel map for Pokemon Go. So, that is just a sort of tip of the iceberg, let's say, a taster of what's to come. So as I mentioned, what makes a good waste spot, and there's loads of websites you can look for potential waste spots. Right off the head, I mean, Google Street View, excellent tool. Much as I like to hate Google, it has got useful websites and useful features that are useful for this. Just bear with me. A shameless plug for DuckDuckGo, excellent search engine, much better than Google. And yeah, other things like what becomes an EX gym. We'll be looking at terrain features and Pokemon nests and much more. So I hope you enjoy me for this series, and probably appearing after this there'll be a box where you can click to watch the next video. So thank you for watching, and have a nice day.